Hello everyone, I chose to write my persuasive speech about normal depends on our environment, so here goes. When we hear someone say normal depends on our environment, what do you think? I instantly think how some things are perfectly fine in some neighborhoods or homes and not okay in other neighborhoods or homes. I guess to be more specific when I say this, I'm referring to inner city, lower income families versus suburban, middle, upper class families. When we are children, we cannot control where we live, how we're raised, what we wear, or how we behave. However, as we age, we discover and learn through lots of things. We learn through school what behavior is acceptable if we haven't already learned so in the home. We see how others carry themselves. We can then begin to make choices about what type of person we wish to be. What I want to speak about is how we do not have to become a product of our environment and be the norm. We can, if we so choose, to have our own individualistic qualities and be the person that's best for us. However, let's talk about environment and statistical norms that we see present day. Education, teen pregnancy, and gang admittance/violence are among the top 3 differentiating environmental norms. Something we have full control over is whether or not we choose to participate our fullest in school. Believe it or not, behavior is a choice, so if we choose to do our best in school and provide ourselves an education, that opens many doors after high school. The choice is for kids in inner city and suburban school system. This is because we have to be accountable for ourselves. It is a well-known fact that parents who have a college degree will push their kids to achieve this goal or make the household expectation that college is the only choice after high school. Not to say that lower income parents may not expect this. According to U.S. News 2016, 79% of middle class parents expected their kid to attend college, while only 14% of inner city parents expected their kids to attend college after high school. Yes, it is statistically proven that suburban high schools have higher graduation rates than those of inner city schools. A study conducted in 2009 reported that only 41% of inner city students in Baltimore, Maryland even graduated high school. Meanwhile, 81% of suburban Baltimore, Maryland students graduated high school. The student has to be the driver in their own success. Even if it's not the environment they live in, even if it's not normal to the environment that they live in. In 2010, the Obama administration set aside grant money for inner city schools to have after-school program. The initiative was to increase graduation rates. Sadly, through 2013, 3 years into the program, only 45% of the students participated. The hope is to get around 85 to 90% participation. This again comes back to choices. We can choose to do better for ourselves. We have to empower students to do something not normal in their own family or even community. Don't be average or normal. The next thing we should discuss is teen pregnancy. As one can imagine, it's drastically lower in suburbs, but still happens. A study conducted in 2005 by Columbia University states 11% of teen girls aged 15 to 19, all races included, who lived in Long Island stated they had at least one child or more living at home, compared to those living in East or Central Harlem, where the number was 37%, all races included. Meanwhile, 82% of suburban parents stated they expected the schools to have the sex ed type talk with their children. The reason being was that they felt their children knew it was not acceptable to have a baby as a youth. While only 14% of inner city parents expected the schools to have the sex ed talk with their children. So when we stop and think about why that number is so high in inner city areas as opposed to suburban areas, how can we get this number down? I believe it comes from education. Educating youths that if you choose to be sexually active, get on birth control. Most suburban youth stated that because of lack of education, they couldn't even fill out necessary medical forms to get free birth control. Let's educate these kids so that they don't become the environmental norm with 2 to 3 kids at home before they're 18. I'm sure you already know inner city youths enter gangs way more than suburban youths. The millennial generation has experienced something not seen much before this generation. What you might not realize is that parents who choose to parent their kids with money, often contribute to gangs. Parents aren't around much. They throw money at their kids, probably out of guilt. In 2016, police raided 8 homes in Powell, Ohio, because of drugs. 3 of the kids used mommy and daddy's money to buy massive quantities of drugs to sell to their classmates. These parents claimed they had no idea how little Johnny got this way. The other 5 kids got their homes raided because police had been trailing them and wanted to know who their drug supplier was. Who, as you could imagine, were drug dealers from gangs. So, indirectly, these guys supported the gangs. The gangs had a hook in the teens, and they didn't want to lose that edge of the constant money source coming in. Yes, this is not as rare in the burbs, but it happens. Nationally, 4% of suburban youths claim to be tied to gangs today. Meanwhile, 47% of Harlem youths as of 2017 stated they have entered gangs. It's certainly not because mom and dad are throwing money at their teens. Most claim the gangs offer them discipline, a sense of family, security, and a job. That job usually involves the sale of drugs, though. 61% of inner city youths are more likely to become addicts because of their home environments and easily accessible drugs, as opposed to the minuscule percentage of suburban youths who are at risk because they have a greater sense of family security and future. Again, I believe it comes down to education and empowerment. Empowering these teens in schools of a better life outside of joining gangs, they can be more stable and financially successful with a job with the right set of tools. So as I wrap this up, I want you to think about what I've said. I want you to realize that adults in this country have to stand up, whether as parents, volunteers of outreach centers, grandparents, teachers, or public figures. We have to stand up and empower and educate our youths to choose a better life for themselves rather than being the societal norm. I personally grew up in poverty from parents who hadn't graduated high school, and I vowed as a child that I was going to have an adulthood that was different than my parents had. I didn't want to be the societal norm. Thank you for listening.